in Cargo, there's a requirement that your features are all additive. So that means your crate should compile with any combination of your features. The reason this requirement exists is because of something called feature unionization. So essentially, if you have some crate X, you have two dependencies, A and B. A enables one feature of X, B enables another feature of X. What Cargo will do is only build X twice, only build X once with both of the features enabled. It will not build it twice, once with each feature. And as a result, depending on what the dependency graph is, you might end up with any combination of feature flags, and so Cargo just requires that your features are additive. And what Hack does is it allows you to check a particular combination of features or a set of combinations of features. So in this case, I've told Cargo Hack to use the power set of the features. That means every possible combination. I wanted to run check, and I wanted to check libs and tests. And that works really well. Sometimes you have to tune this if you have benchmarks or nightly only features and stuff, and Hack has ways to specify this. If you check out detail Rust toolchain, it doesn't really matter which one you use. I don't think it makes that much of a difference. And then the final step that I have is MSRV. So MSRV stands for minimum supported Rust version. And this is essentially to figure out whether the crate continues to build with the version of Rust that we claim, let's say, in the README that it builds with. So in this case, it just defaults to 156.1 because that is the version that released the 2021 edition, which is what all new crates default to when you run Cargo new. So this just seemed like a good default to have in the sort of CI template here. And it really just does the same as the other steps here, which is it checks out, installs, and then runs Cargo check against MSRV. It doesn't run the full test suite. Arguably it could, but this was more like you really just want to make sure that you still compile against that version. The test suite is somewhat less important when it comes to MSRV. So those are all the check steps that I have in there. And then for safety, we're going to remove this one because we don't actually have any unsafe code in this crate. So this is running Miri, running the leak sanitizer, the thread sanitizer, the address sanitizer, and all of that good business. It also runs Loom, which again doesn't matter for our particular crate. So I'm just going to remove safety. remove safety. And no std similarly, it makes sure that your crate still builds against targets that have no standard library and no allocator, or targets that have an allocator but not a standard library. Also is not relevant to us here, so we can remove it. The next thing is, let's look at scheduled. So the scheduled CI job runs, in this case, I think it runs every day. But scheduled jobs in GitHub are a little weird because they only run as long as the project is still active. But sort of conceptually, it is more correct to think of these as rolling jobs because and the rationale here is they might break independently of any given PR. And that's the reason you want to run them on an ongoing basis. So the first example of this is building on Nightly, right? New Nightly releases come out every so often, specifically Nightly. And when they come out, they might break your crate. There might be a regression in Nightly. And so as a result, you really want to run a build on Nightly, or at least fairly regularly. And that's indeed what this does. It checks out, installs Nightly. And then this thing is a little bit interesting. I'll get back to what this does when we talk about testing, about why I have this bit here. But essentially, it runs Cargo test, and it runs it with --lock. So it runs it with the lock file you have checked in. And this little bit is just, if you don't have a lock file checked in, it generates one for you. And this is to ensure that we are actually testing nightly and not updates to your dependencies. And then this one is update. So this is sort of the inverse. This is saying we're going to build on beta, and we're going to run Cargo update and then see the test still succeeds. Right? So the idea here being, we want to make sure that if you run with a newer version of the dependencies, then your test suite still passes. The reason this one is important is because you're consuming, the crates that consume you, the crates that depend on you, they are going to have an independent lock file from yours, so they might use newer versions of dependencies than the ones you previously tested with. And so you want to regularly make sure that they don't get broken as a result of your dependencies getting updated. And that's what this will do. You see here also, I've specifically set this job to fail if there are any new deprecated items in my dependencies. Okay, so those are the scheduled jobs. And then finally, it's the running the actual test suite. Again, you see that the on here is the same for all these. So this one runs your test suite on stable and beta. Beta here is entirely just to help test out new versions of the compiler to catch regressions and such. It has the same little bit here. And now we can actually look at this in a little bit more detail. This is GitHub CI kind of magic to say, if this file does not exist, then run cargo generate lock file. The reason I have this bit in here is because I want to be able to merge in this template, regardless of whether the current project, the project you're merging this into, already has a lock file checked in or not. And this way it'll work either way. But I do think there's a strong argument for checking in your lock file, and then this command will not run, and instead you're just going to run cargo test-locked, which will test with your locked dependencies. The reason I think we should check in lock files is because it allows people to do things like bisect your crate. Like they can check out an old version of your crate and it should still be able to build by virtue of using the exact dependencies that were present at the time. But this way it's not required as part of the CI template. And then minimal is only runs on stable, but it happens to also install nightly because minimal versions is an unstable flag. And what it does is it runs cargo update with the -z minimal versions flag. This is an unstable flag that causes cargo update's behavior to be sort of inverted. So rather than choosing the newest version that's available for all your dependencies, it chooses the oldest version that's still subject to the dependency requirements that you set in your cargo toml. And the idea here is sort of the same as for why you want to test with cargo update, which is you don't have control over what versions of your dependencies your consumers use. The only thing you know is that Cargo, when running your consumers, is going to pick some version that's compatible with what you put in your cargo toml. That's the only thing you know. And cargo update is going to be a way to test that if everything is the newest, it still works. Cargo.lock, or the stuff that's in cargo lock, is going to check that whatever's in your lock file also still builds. And then this is going to be if some consumer only got those dependencies through you and hasn't updated in ages, they'll still be able to build. This is basically to check that the specifications you have in your cargo.toml file are accurate. So for example, let's look at our cargo toml here. Take temp file. We could specify temp file as just 3, right? Because major version 3, that's the API we built against. But imagine that in our crate, one of the things that we did is make use of, let's say, the foo function in temp file was added in version 3.2.1. Well, if we give 3, that means that one of our dependencies might choose to use temp file 3.0.0 because that's compatible with the specifier. But if they did, then our crate wouldn't build because we actually require 3.2.1. So minimal versions is a way to try to tease out these kinds of problems to ensure that your consumers don't end up in weird states. And so this is why usually I recommend that if you take a dependency, you add the full version number, not just the current major version, to this, precisely to ensure that you don't, or it's the real thing you should do, right, is look back to the version list and find exactly the minimal version that you need. In practice, no one can be bothered to do that, but it's better than to pick the version that is the current one because you know that has everything you're going to use, rather than trying to pick some like generic minimal because it's not clear that that'll actually work. But minimal versions then is a way for you to ensure that the minimum requirements you've set in your cargo toml are actually appropriate. There is some work. There's some annoying parts about minimal versions because it chooses minimal versions transitively, which means if one of your dependencies has an incorrectly specified minimum versions, like imagine back here, imagine temp file takes 3.3.0, but then it depends on foo equals 3, but uses things from foo 3.2.1. Then when we run our resolve with minimal versions, then the foo dependency, which we get transitively through temp file, we're going to choose 3.0.0. That's what minimal versions tells us to. But temp file actually needs foo 3.2.1. And so they have a bug in their cargo.toml. But as a result, we suffer. And so that's why minimal versions is a little bit of a pain sometimes. Like I definitely have some crates where I end up doing things like to make minimal versions happy. And then down here I say like foo equals 3.2.1 via temp file. And so this is one way to basically force that minimal requirement because temp file hasn't specified it themselves. And it's really sad to have these. It changes the edges in your dependency graphs, so cargo builds can't be quite as efficient. So it's really unfortunate that these are here, but usually it's not too bad to work around. But as a result, there's another proposal, which is -z direct minimal versions, which chooses the minimal versions of your direct dependencies, but the highest version of all transitive dependencies. So it's sort of a combination of these two. And I think this is a good thing to test too. But it's not. I don't think it's going to be available on Nightly until the Nightly for 170 comes out. Or rather on beta until that comes out. On Nightly it'll be available, I think, pretty soon because I think it's landed. So that might be an interesting thing to try, but I haven't played around with it yet. The next test step we run is OS check. So this is just to make sure that the crate test suite also runs on macOS and Windows using the stable compiler. Nothing special here, just block all features, all targets. And then we run coverage testing. There are a bunch of different ways to do coverage testing in Rust these days. I tend to like Cargo LVM Cov. It uses the new, I guess it's not that new anymore, but the instrumented coverage. So rather than using a sampling coverage checker, like what we used to have before with something like Kcov, this instruments the code when you build it, and then runs the instrumented code, which logs all the lines that are executed, and then you get much more accurate reporting because it's not sampling. And Cargo LVM Cov is a tool that makes it easier to build your code with instrumentation for coverage and then running and collecting that coverage. So this again checks out, installs this helper binary, and then runs cargo LVM cov, which essentially just runs your test suite with the other arguments, and then it outputs it in a way that codecov.io understands. And my choice here of codecov.io is sort of arbitrary. It's one that I know I picked up years ago when I was looking initially at code coverage, and it's worked fine for me ever since. And it's free to use for open source projects, so it's just been very easy. Okay, so that means we now have, we deleted no set and safety, and the rest of this in theory should just work. So if we do add CI bits, actually here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to create a new branch called CI. I'm going to go back to main. I'm going to reset this to origin/main. I'm going to check CI, and then I'm going to push CI to origin. This is just because I want to do a PR of this to see that the PR machinery works as well. So if we now go back here and open a PR from this one, add CI, and then I'll put the link there, create pull request. And just for those in chat here, I'll put that there in case anyone's curious. And so hopefully now you see this now brings in, because we did a merge with this other repo, it brings in all of the commits from that other repo as well, but that's fine. This is a one-off thing. And now you see it kicked off all these jobs, and it'll be interesting to see whether these actually pass. Hopefully they should all pass, but we'll find out. I think the one that's most likely to, the two that are most likely to fail are minimal versions and minimum supported Rust version, because neither of those we've checked. Also, who knows about macOS and Windows? It's always a little bit of a coin toss, but I don't think we're doing anything particularly OS dependent. And Clippy, I don't know if we ran Clippy on this actually back in the day. Better to preserve history or do a squash merge. I preserve history for this merge. And the reason for this is because in the future, I'm going to want to merge from Rust CI conf again. And if I do a squash, then I'm going to have to deal with a lot more merge conflicts because Git doesn't know about the connection, the existing connections and merge history with that other repo. So this I specifically want to be a merge. Let's see. Nightly doc works fine. Cargo update works fine. I forget whether we checked in our cargo lock. That's another good question here. We did not. So that's the other thing that I want to do here is git add cargo lock. Then.git ignore. I don't want to ignore cargo lock. And I want to add my cargo lock. Check in cargo lock. So that's the next thing I'm going to want to do. Something else failed here. Okay, so minimum supported Rust version failed. And that's because... Oh. That's interesting. Crates index 019. Huh. Is there something weird about crates index 019 that it doesn't work on 156? Fascinating. Crates index. If we go to the repo for this, cargo toml. So it has a Rust version 060, but this error is very unhelpful. So what we'll do then is we'll go to our GitHub workflows check. Oops, I mean test. No, I mean check. MSRV. And this is going to be one dot. I guess really what I want to do here is something like show me 019.0. Yeah, so it too has Rust version 160. So what we're going to do here is 160.0 for crates index. Bump MSRV for crates index. See what else might fail. I like to just deal with, I'm committing each of these, but I like to do all of them before pushing so that we avoid having to wait for CI each time. Minimal versions, it's not terribly surprising. No version new, found for version. So this suggests that OpenSSL sys has an incorrect specification of its dependency on rustc version. So if we go to, can't type OpenSSL sys. The reason I go via docsrs is just a really easy way to get to the GitHub repo. So let's see if we find OpenSSL sys. It's cargo toml. It has a dependency on build main on rustc underscore version. Is that still true? That's the other question. If we look at build main, you know what I think? Yeah, I think that OpenSSL sys has moved away from using that dependency at all. Now it uses autoconfig. But we're using an older version of OpenSSL sys as well. So this suggests that this was a bug in an old version of OpenSSL sys. OpenSSL is particularly annoying when it comes to this stuff. So what we can do here is cargo tree-i OpenSSL sys, and look at what we find. Okay, so we get in OpenSSL sys through a bunch of different things. We get it in through curl, we get it in through curl sys, and we get it in through OpenSSL. So there are a couple of ways that we can try to solve this problem. My first instinct here is actually just to bump 4-c minimal versions. Again, this is where it's annoying to use minimal versions because this isn't the problem in our specification. It's a transitive problem of minimal versions. But what we can do is just pin a much newer version of OpenSSL. So currently you see we're using OpenSSL version 0.1045. If we go to this, nope, that's not what I wanted. OpenSSL is currently, what is currently 1045? So we're using the newest version of OpenSSL, interestingly enough. Oh, right, I haven't, never mind, that's false. I need to do cargo plus nightly update-c minimal versions. And now we can do cargo tree OpenSSL sys. See what we get. Okay, so we're bringing in OpenSSL version 0.10.0. So that's pretty old. So let's try to do a sort of binary search here. So if I do 20, and then I do cargo update, and then I run cargo check, does it build? That builds. Okay, so what if I do 10? Binary search. Cargo check. That builds. That's interesting. Oh, it's because I'm not using all targets, I think. Yeah, so this breaks for a number of reasons. But let's do 45 here. Update minimal versions. Cargo check all targets. Because we fail somewhere else too, which is rand ISAC. So why are we getting in cargo tree rand ISAC? Brought in through rand 0.6.0. So let's see, what's the newest version of rand? Well, 0.85. Okay, so it's a much newer version of rand. So where did we get that from? We got that in through crossbeam channel, which comes in through cargo, and parking lot. All right, so let's just see what versions of 0.6 there are. Oh, these are all yanked. 0.65. Okay, 0.65. Check all targets. That still fails. So then let's look at rand ISAC. And again, this is why people can't be bothered to use minimal versions, because it's actually pretty annoying. 0.11. So rand ISAC 0.11. Oops, update minimal versions. Great. Okay, so then we might not need the specification for rand here. The nice thing is once you've done this once, then it sort of fixes itself. Okay, libgit2 can't find range version. So the range version here is method on. It's a method on package config. Probe version. Range version. Okay. Package config. Oops. So we're bringing in package config version 0.3.11. And so this was clearly added in some later version of 0.3.11. So let's do cargo toml. Didn't need that, but package config is 0.3.26. Why not? Oops, again. Let's see, cargo check. I think maybe we did need random 6.4 here. Now it's elliptic curve. Why are we even getting that in? HKDF through P384, through Pasito, through cargo. Oh, man. All right. What do we have here? Docs, HKDF. This is actually one of the worst I've seen. It's because cargo brings in a lot of dependencies too. 0.12.3 for this one. HKDF is 0.12.3. This is another thing where someone should write a tool for this because it's very mechanical. Yeah, this is insanely annoying. I agree. Great. Oh, you're right. It was 0.65. And I think demonstrating how annoying this is useful. Okay, so P384 has a problem too. P384. Wait, what? Oh, 0.11. So what's a new version of 0.11? 0.11.2. Now, note that the part of the problem here is it seems like some of these have actually been broken by new versions of Rust, maybe? Either that or their dependency specifiers are, again, just straight up wrong. Okay, rand AC is 0.1. That one doesn't have a newer version. Okay, so rand AC gets brought in through rand 0.65. Was there a newer version of rand on the 0.6 branch? There's not. Okay. And I think it's going to be... Oh, so the other thing we can do here is actually just bump... Do we take a dependency on rand specifically? Yeah, just that one. So we're getting rand through parking lot, through crossbeam channel, actually. So what we can do is instead of trying to do this, get rand to a newer major version, which we get by getting a new version of crossbeam channel. So crossbeam channel. So crossbeam channel is 0.5 now, but let's say 0.39 instead of 0.36. To do crossbeam channel 0.36. No, 0.39. Crossbeam. All right, let's see. So that got rid of the old version of parking lot, which is what brought in the old version of rand. And then we also make sure that we don't accidentally bring it in again. So now you see the old version of rand is just completely gone, which is what we wanted. And now let's see if it builds. This looks pretty promising. Never crossed the beans. Okay, so that builds. So we can now get rid of this. Let's see if we can also get rid of that, for example. Nope, that's still needed. And then, we can do a bit of a binary search here if we actually want to be a little bit nicer about this, because 0.11 was the one that failed. 0.26 works. So we can just sort of dig our way through here. Okay, that seemed to work. So 11 works. Let's do 16. Let's see. Great. So that works. I don't want to spend too much time fiddling with these. OpenSSL is the same. Like, we could do somewhere halfway between 0 and that one. That fails. So 30. This is just so that we don't have to go all the way through the binary search, but we can at least go a little bit further, right? So 38. Great. So that seems like it builds. Package config, I think with these we can just leave. And then we want to git checkout cargo.lock, and then we want a cargo check. Just have it reflect the changes we made here. No changes were needed because everything that was in our cargo lock was at least these versions anyway. Fixes for bad minimal versions. You see I've written that comment before. So now we can get rid of all these and this, and then we can go back here. What else failed? Minimal versions we dealt with. Coverage failed. And MSRV failed, which is fine. We can deal with that. Could not find a repository. So this is for CodeCov. You need to, before you can start getting CI, you need to go to log in with GitHub. This should also always open in dev. And so now I can do this. At least in theory. Really? Why? Interesting. There we go. Okay, so now it's been created. That was all that was really needed. And now that step should work as well. Now we can do a git push. And then we see. Now I haven't added any actual approval rules here yet, which is the next thing we're going to do. This is stuff like, what do we actually require before being able to merge something? Let's see here. Okay. And then the other thing I want to do is make sure that all of the workflows actually ran. So we go back to check here, rolling, and test. So because sometimes there's like a syntax error in your YAML or something, and then it basically gets hidden from this list, and you have to go in here and see that it's actually running, but that seems like it is. Nightly now fails. Why does Nightly fail? On Nightly, the lock file needs to be updated. Locked? Oh, interesting. All right. New log file. So this is, I guess I didn't rerun cargo check after I checked it out and updated these dependencies. So the reason the diffs here are things like we now have multiple versions of FF, for example, being brought in as a result of the minimal versions that we specified. Did I leak a secret? Is there a secret in here? No, that's fine. I don't care. If you want to take over my code cub for this one, that's fine. I think I can also just erase that after the stream. But thanks for the call out. All right. So now at least hopefully, there were 3 rockets and now there are only 2. Makes me sad. It's not a rocket anymore. Let's see. If everything goes to plan. And these should now all turn green. I wish they would just all run in parallel and all run fast, but I suppose GitHub is donating CI for free for open source things. Yeah, I know it's crazy that they just show the secret without a button to reveal. Come on, CI. Details. Rolling. No, don't auto scroll. They're all running. Test isn't even running yet. Can I cancel that run? I want to cancel that. That's the execution from the previous push. Same with this. I don't actually care about that one. And same with this. I don't actually care about that one. Because for open source projects, GitHub CI limits the number of jobs that can run in parallel. And so that's why some of these haven't even started yet. And so by canceling the runs for this push, so you see some of them are now being canceled, I'm freeing up more resources to run this one faster or more in parallel. Hey, now there are 3 rockets again. Nice. And Windows takes forever to start because they presumably have a limited number of Windows hosts. As a software engineer, doesn't this work feel like a waste of time due to the minimal benefit versus time used? I mean, if it's your free time, it's your choice, but you might get paid for your time. When you say this worked, what do you mean? Do you mean doing streams, or do you mean like the minimal version stuff? If it's doing streams, I have all sorts of good answers. If it's minimal versions, yeah, it's a waste of time. We should have tooling that does this for us, and I would like dependencies to fix the problem. Now, is it a waste of time in the sort of grander scheme of things? Unclear. Like, I do think it's actually valuable to have a CI check that tests your minimal versions, and I think it can save you a lot of time down the road when your consumers come to you and say, hey, my thing doesn't build with the dependencies you specified in your cargo tunnel. And especially for things like, I tried to build and it failed, and it fails in really weird ways if they're using a dependency that isn't new enough. So this is a way for you to catch it before all of your consumers catch it, and it's better to catch it in one place than many places. So I don't think it's wasted to have the correct minimal versions and check for it. I think the work required to get to that point is a lot of waste, and we should really build tooling for it. Yeah, so that's why, if it's for the minimal work stuff, that's the reason why I think it's valuable. Clippy seems like it passed, so that's nice. Oh yeah, I think we did a pass on that in the previous stream. MSRV succeeded, so that's good. Cargo hack succeeded. Coverage, we don't know yet. macOS, we don't know yet. Minimal versions, we don't know yet. Tests passed on beta, so it probably passed on stable. Updated passed last time, so it's unlikely it'll fail this time. Would be